Good evening. Welcome to the 6 p.m. press conference here on the CZU complex. My name is Jonathan Cox, Deputy Chief for CAL FIRE San Mateo Santa Cruz Unit. As always, if you could just mute your telephones, take any conversations outside, as well as reporting, and keep your masks on as much as possible while in this room. Just a quick update on the complex itself. The fire now stands at 67,000 acres with 5% containment. We still have over 24,000 residents which have been 24,000 residents which have been threatened. There are still 24,300 structures still threatened on this fire. You'll notice that we're going to reflect 0 injuries to firefighters on the next update after reflecting 2 up until this point. That is strictly because the injuries don't meet the reporting requirements to be a reportable injury. Essentially, they're of such minor injuries that they don't actually meet the criteria for a formal injury notification, which is good news. With that, we can confirm 115 structures have been destroyed on this fire. That damage inspection process is ongoing throughout the fire perimeter, and we have increased our resources at scene. We now have 1,349 personnel assigned to the incident itself. With that, operational briefing about what's going on the ground from Incident Management Team 3, Operations Section Chief Brunton.
Good evening. Good day of firefighting today. The weather has been cooperating with us as it has within the past 24 hours. So it's given us an opportunity to jump on our control objectives and being able to establish lines in a variety of parts of the fire. Again, with the limited resources, we're unable to make a lot of production with those control lines, but we're doing the best we possibly can, and we're meeting our objectives that we've set with our folks. On the north zone of the fire, it's looking really good as far as the fire has stayed within its same control area. Really haven't seen a lot of forward progress of that fire. Doesn't mean it's extinguished, but due to the weather conditions, it's pretty static at this point. So the communities of La Honda, Lomar, and then also Pescadero are still reasonably safe and not initially threatened at this point in time. So that's good news. As we move down the coastal areas, not a lot of movement there. The communities are still in good shape as far as that goes. We haven't really seen any good movement of the fire at that location, so that's again good news. On the south end, as I stated this morning, we did complete our fire break or control line, a contingency line if you will, at the very southern part of the fire, just above the campus. You see Santa Cruz and the community of Santa Cruz, so that gives us a good barrier of protection for those areas. And today they started at what we call a secondary contingency line, so basically a backup, if you will, of that control line right above that. So that line is constructed from Highway 1 over to Highway 9, so it gives us a really good buffer and a place to make a stand if the fire were to advance south. The Highway 9 corridor, Filton, the community of Filton is looking really good. Fire has not made any progress towards that community. Was able to get up Highway 9 corridor into Ben Lomond and into Boulder Creek, and although very, very smoky, I was able to travel deep towards the fire lane of the fire, and it's quite a way. It's pretty much hung up on the ridge top up there, which is good for us because again, it's moving. It's more static, not really moving, not advancing to the pace that it was the past few days, which is really good because we were able to get some personnel and crews in there to start putting in some line. On the Empire Grade Road, throughout the community of Bonnie Doon, we did not appear to have any structural loss at all today, so the crews were able to get in, and wherever they could find any sort of fire that was creeping and so forth, they were able to jump on that and protect more structures that were having some minor threats to them. Again, because we lacked the wind and so forth, that really gave us an advantage today. So some really good work, hard work by the folks, today's firefight. A lot of questions about aircraft, constantly get questioned about that. So although the conditions were such that allowed us to have a lot of success on the ground, In the air, we didn't have as much success because of the smoky conditions. And again, like I've stated before, the smoke does not allow us to fly safely or to make our drops effectively. Therefore, the only area that we were able to have that was clear enough to do any sort of work again, as it has been for the number of days, is in the north zone of the fire. And so we were unable to drop any air tankers or the tanker drops into those areas. It wasn't sufficient enough for the air tankers, plus due to the other fires, we did not have those available to us. What we did have available to us is we do have 6 helicopters that have water dropping capabilities, and we were flying those throughout the day until the air deteriorated to the point where we could not fly them any further. So for a majority of the day, they did fly, they did make their drops, did have good impact upon our suppression activities, and had success as long as we could fly them. And that is pretty much how the day went today. So, as we've been saying, small wins and another, I think, small win for today, adding up to the big win of getting this thing put away.
Obviously, this incident is a coordination between 4 agencies together working in unified command. And one of the unified command agencies is Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office. I'd like to introduce Chief Deputy Clark.
Well, good evening. So I want to touch on kind of what we did today and our progress. So for us, burglary suppression, that's our priority now. That and welfare checks. And obviously welfare checks, if people need help, take priority. But we had a lot of people today. So we had about 100 folks total just in the evacuated area running around doing patrols. We had at least 30 people from allied agencies. And again, we really appreciate their help, especially right now, in helping to augment our staff with patrols of evacuated areas. And that's what we did. So so in terms of numbers, welfare checks, people requesting us to go do something or needing help or seeing something that they thought might need attention. We had about 20 calls like that. We also had about 25 calls for service regarding suspicious people. And so that obviously we want to get on, just thinking that potentially there could be somebody there wanting to basically loot a home or break into a home. So we got about 25 of those calls. Today we did make 2 arrests. So, and like I said, and I've said this before, it's unfortunate that people want to take advantage of this situation, and it's terrible. But I'll tell you, amongst the folks that are out there, this sort of work, I'm telling you, our folks, there's nothing more that we value in the sense that we're out there looking for people, trying to prey on people when they can't protect their own property. That we take very personally, and we're doing everything we can to look for these folks. And so here's 2 of them here. So we arrested a lady today from Santa Clara County. She had no business being within the evacuated zone, and she was arrested. She had a warrant. We also arrested a man from Alameda County. He was in Boulder Creek, had a police scanner, running around likely listening to what we were doing, but nonetheless we contacted him. He had no business being in an evacuated zone, and he was arrested for entering into an evacuated area. And so we took that person to jail as well. I want to touch on real quick, and just to go back to that, the small snapshot, but our folks are out there. They're going to be roaming around. They're going to be looking for these people. And so, and like I said, 2 of them that we came across just today. The weather's changing. I want to touch on that for just a second. Again, our deputies are still reporting. As is CAL FIRE is reporting to us, there are still people in the area that, as much as they want to go get something or go do something at their home, we completely empathize. And I've said this before, completely empathize that you want to get back to your house because of some reason, but frankly it's too dangerous. And not only is it too dangerous, it hampers CAL FIRE's ability to fight the fire. And so and I'll touch on just a couple of the hazards. I mean, just for our folks, right? I mean, when we're riding around in these areas, responding to those calls for service, looking for these people, I mean, we're talking areas that have actively burned, and so looking, trees could fall, power lines could fall. You're talking about areas that have been burning for the last few days. Now we're in these areas and we see it, and yet we're concerned about it. An unsuspecting person could get seriously hurt, and that's in addition to the hampering of CAL FIRE's efforts to get their equipment where they need to go and potentially create a rescue situation which diverts resources. And then in terms of missing people, I've touched on that before. We had 2 cases. We've had no new cases today. I've encouraged people, and I'll continue to say that if there is someone that you have not heard from, if there's a person that you're concerned about, especially if they live in the evacuated area, to call us, to call our dispatch number at 831-471-1121, and let us know about that so that we can investigate it. Again, we've got a team of investigators that are running through these cases. And again, we didn't have any new cases today. We still have the two that we're still looking to reconcile as soon as we can get into those areas to do a greater depth of investigation. A couple other things, just sort of, again, some housekeeping things with regards. I put myself kind of in your situation if you've been evacuated. Mail, for example. What do I do about mail? Just as a reminder, you can contact the post office. You can hold your mail. You should be doing that, or divert your mail to a family or to a family member or friend that you trust that can collect your mail for you that's not in the evacuated zone, so you have access to that. And lastly, just shelter sites. So I want to provide a new web address. This is it's a new site to go to for folks that are displaced, that need a place to stay. That web address is Santa Cruz County, all spelled out, .us/fire resources. That's Santa Cruz County, .us/fire resources. Thank you.
Speaking next from another one of the Unified Command Agencies, from San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, is Detective Blankswade.
Good evening. Not a lot of changes for San Mateo County. We only have two minor changes. One is that the beaches in Half Moon Bay are closed. Again, we're asking everybody, please avoid these coastal towns for safety reasons of the residents and also first responders. We truly need to keep the coastal areas clear and the roadways open. The two evacuation sites are still open at Half Moon Bay High School and also the San Mateo Event Center. The only other change is the road closure that was formerly at 1 and Highway 84 is now at 1 and Tenitas Creek. Again, please don't try to enter these evacuation areas. I know even though you've heard that there aren't many changes as far as the fire is concerned in San Mateo County, we've heard that there are potential wind changes and it could get very dangerous very quickly, and we need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to protect you. So please listen to the advice of these fire experts. We've been regularly doing security checks and home checks of various properties throughout the evacuation centers, and we're happy to report that there have been no issues. Thank you again for everybody's cooperation and patience.
Next, Unified Incident Commander from CAL FIRE Incident Management Team 3, Chief C.
Good evening. Well, like you heard earlier, it was a good day for firefighting forces on the ground. The folks out there working extremely hard, developing perimeter control, going in behind the structures and trying to extinguish all the hot spots and create containment lines. Obviously, this evening we don't show an increase in the containment, but tomorrow morning we're working diligently tonight, identifying those areas that we've got contained on this incident, and we'll be looking at increasing the containment percentage in the morning. Additionally, the growth in the fire size is due just to better mapping. We still have a lot of work to do out there identifying exactly where the fire is and exactly how big this is. So I still do expect to see increase in acreage over the next few days. Starting tomorrow morning at 05 a.m., the National Weather Service has put this entire area in the northern region of California into a red flag warning for a 48-hour period for potential thunderstorm activity and dry lightning. With that, there's a potential of increased winds in and over this fire area and the surrounding areas around us. Obviously, you're well aware that there's multiple fires throughout the state in the northern part of California, and this red flag warning is going to hamper all of our efforts on any of these incidents. So if we do get a thunderstorm in this area with dry lightning, there's a potential that we have new fires and expect large fire growth out of that due to the wind factors and the field conditions out there. So our incident will be prepared to mobilize resources and initial attack any new incidents that start in our sphere of influence, and we'll be prepared to respond at a moment's notice once we're notified or become aware of any new ignition out there. Have a good evening.
And our final speaker from the CAL FIRE San Mateo Santa Cruz Unit Chief Larkin.
Good evening. I just want to reiterate a couple of points that has been brought up here. The first thing I want to state is the resources, the limited resources that we have currently assigned to this incident are doing an outstanding job at the efforts they're putting forth to protect the communities that are assigned to. The second thing I want to reiterate is those members of the public that have went back into the evacuation zones or refused to leave those areas or decided to stay to protect their homes. With this wind event, the red flag warning coming in and the dry lightning that are predicted, could be a volatile situation for those people that are in there. We ask you, if you have the opportunity, get out of there now, ahead of this front that's coming in, so you can allow us to go in and do our job safely. Because if we're trying to respond to new incidents or expanding areas of the fire or trying to protect additional structures, and you're on the roadways, it's going to hamper our abilities. This is a volatile situation with the prediction of the winds that are coming in, with anticipated winds of over 50 miles an hour that could be predicted. So please let us do our work. Get out of the area for your safety and our safety. I want to reiterate something that Chief Deputy Clark said. The fuels out there have been burning for 7 days now in some areas. It's very dangerous out there. I, in fact, had an opportunity to get up into the fire area today. And driving up the road, I was about 5 minutes up the road. We turned around to come back, and just in that time frame, there was a large branch that had fallen off of a tree that had been burning in the top. So people that are running around out there in their cars or their motorcycles, it's a dangerous situation out there. So for your safety, please get out of that area and let us get in there and do what we need to do. Thank you.
Just one item to note before we get to questions is we've had a lot of outpouring of support from the community in how they can help firefighters. We, as firefighters, do not need any water or food or anything donated to us right now. We're self-sufficient with our logistical operations. We really appreciate the support we see from the community, but please, dropping off donations right now actually is not what we need. We need the space to actually get in there and do the work and have people leave the area. If people are adamant they want to do something for firefighters, a poster with some words of encouragement on it go much further than people may expect. So that's our suggestion. For donations, specifically for fire victims, please contact those nonprofit organizations such as the local donation centers in your community. With that, happy to open it up to any questions.
Can you address again the number of firefighters that are working? Do they have to work 48 hours in a row, or what are their shifts? And also, how many would you be requesting if you did have resources available? I mean, how many would you ask for a fire of this size?
Currently on the incident, we have over 1,300 personnel assigned. None of those personnel now, we have them in a work rest cycle, so they're working 24 on, 24 off. That's a standard operating shift for our firefighting resources there. It's difficult to say how many resources we would order or how many personnel we would order for this incident. We go through a planning process each day, and we identify the needs of each division, each branch, each zone on this incident. Obviously, it would be a large number increase if they were available. But with the multiple incidents throughout the state of California right now, the multiple incident management teams, there's limited resources for all the available fires right now. We do have resources coming in from out of state. They are coming in. We have some out-of-state resources that have shown up on this incident, and we anticipate to see more over the next few days and the coming week.
But just as a follow-up, is the National Guard coming to assist in any way?
So the National Guard has been stood up through Cal OES and Cal Fire. We are working through the training process. It's a 7-day process to bring on National Guard hand crews. They're being mobilized right now in training, and they'll be available here in the next few days.
All right, any additional questions? Yeah.
How about the U.S. Forest Service? Are they involved, or
Are they going to be involved?
Yeah, so we have a variety of agencies involved: federal, state, local, private. It's part of the California mutual aid system is that all agencies have agreements to respond during major emergencies. So we have resources that cross all those different levels.
Earlier, CAL FIRE tweeted a map that showed where the lightning hit, but it wasn't in the red zone. Most of it was not in the red zone where you're actively fighting the fire. Can you just explain that?
Yeah, so the lightning that hit the area that first night on Saturday evening into Sunday morning, it struck in multiple places throughout the unit, both in San Mateo and Santa Cruz counties. Those fires obviously just grew from the locations they were at, and then were wind-driven in kind of that southeasterly direction. So there's been a significant amount of fire growth since those lightning fires ignited into the kind of southeast areas. Is probably why you're not seeing any actual lightning strikes inside the perimeter.
What is being prepared for downtown Boulder Creek and trying to keep the fire from coming down San Lorenzo Valley?
Yes, the question is related to what is the strategy for keeping the fire out of Boulder Creek and the San Lorenzo Valley. I think Chief Brunton would probably be the best to answer that.
Those communities it's a bit difficult because the topography of the terrain is very difficult for us to construct control lines like we normally do on most incidents. So that's another challenge that we face. It's not a cookie cutter approach on every fire. In that particular case, we really have to look at our strategies and with the limited resources again and take targets of opportunity, areas of opportunity, and construct lines there. So we've gone in, we've assessed that, and we have crews in working behind the community up into the mountain range in the hills and connecting the dots, if you will, between control lines such as roads, other trails, and that sort of thing that we can put into play to protect or at least to have the fire herded around the community, if you will, versus just stopping it dead in its tracks. We won't be able to do that, but certainly it gives us a fighting chance to at least move the fire, herd it around the community so that it'll surpass the community and thereby protect the community.
As a follow-up to that, today we talked to some residents in Ben Lomond who said that they only saw the volunteer firefighters. They never saw any CAL FIRE crews out there. Were you guys there in Ben Lomond, and what's the strategy there? Because they feel like everything's been left up to the volunteers.
Yeah, certainly I believe they could feel that. Again, we have limited resources, but they've been protecting their community, and there have been CAL FIRE resources there, I can assure that. Again, limited, so maybe that's the reason that is being reported. It's not the typical heavy presence that you will typically see in most incidents when, again, as we explained, we have a lot of resources available to us, and it's very present and very prevalent there in our, right there on Front Street, so to speak. So we have been working resources with bulldozers when we can, our hand crews, engine companies, and then more so doing assessments and starting to put the planning process into play as to when we do get the resources where we can put those lines. So there isn't a community that we haven't had some form of presence there. Is it as much as we'd like? Absolutely not. But certainly we're not trying to put any community out as an island or unprotected. We're doing everything we possibly can to protect those communities. Every one of those is equal to us regardless.
Can you comment on a report in the LA Times that contends that Boulder, with respect to Boulder Creek, the fire is expected to come there within the next few days, and that there's part of my earlier question too. As far as what are the contingencies there? You speak about limited resources. I mean, what is realistic? What do people expect and prepare for?
Well, probably where that story came from is the conditions that we had probably the past 72 hours ago and earlier in the week when we had very strong winds that aligned themselves with that San Lorenzo Valley that we can predict what the fire does to a certain point and in those fuels and the intensity of the fire that we were expecting it full well to come into the community. That's just what we were dealing with Mother Nature, so we had to kind of react to that. So that's probably why there was the stories that it was imminent, that the fire was going to, and that's why we evacuated as early as we did. We were expecting that. We have plans in place to take what limited resource we have and to put them into play again The tactic would have been point protection, which means that as the fire hits towards the structures, then we would use their resources to go knock down or herd the fire around that and continue that process, a bump and run, if you will, tactic. So that was our plan, what we have. That plan continues, but the past couple days have allowed us to put in some control lines that will make that more effective and efficient if that were to occur. Also, we are also making plans in the fact that with the changes in the weather, that wind is going to shift from what we've been seeing over this past week. So actually, the wind pattern will actually push it a little bit more away from the community than down into it. So as bad as that weather prediction is overall, for certain parts of this fire, it actually is going to help us move it away from those certain communities. And Boulder Creek is one of those communities that protects. So we always, when we put our planning process into play, it's not just for the immediate few hours or 24 hours. We try to look 48, 72, and 96 hours ahead of time with our plans so that we can look at every variable that we possibly can and take advantage of the things that Mother Nature provides us regarding weather and so forth, and put our control lines in play so that we have the best chance of success. So that we try not to react, but we can be proactive in the firefighting.
Just to follow up to the National Guard, when they come, what role would they play? And is that a first? Has the National Guard helped you guys out before?
No, we've actually utilized the National Guard for many years. We have an excellent relationship, and that their capabilities have increased dramatically over the years because we've had to use them so often. I mean, yes, this has been a very busy fire season, but the past 5-8 years or so have been very active fire seasons. We've had drawdowns of resources, not as quite as probably as bad as this, but we had drawdowns. So they're an excellent resource that we tap into. Our director of our agency, their general in charge of the National Guard, work tirelessly throughout the year in these planning processes so that when we need to tap them, it's not, again, a reactive thing, but proactive, so that they can stand up their troops. We have a training process that's well established, a curriculum well established, so that we can bring them in and in a 7-day process turn around and take even raw troops or troops that have never done this before and make them an effective firefighting force. Typically what we utilize them for in this kind of situation is as a hand crew. So much like our crews that you see out there on the fire line, whether it be our CDCR inmate crews or our firefighter hand crews, same thing. And we utilize them for a variety of tasks in fire suppression and making these lines to protect, for instance, around the communities would be an excellent way that we will use them when we do receive them.
Because you're expecting lightning and there were so many lightning fires last week, are you increasing crews that are watching for that specifically? And is there any technology that you can use to spot those lightning fires more quickly?
Absolutely. We are very vigilant. Again, we worked with our partners through the National Weather Service, and they are very vigilant. We have a full process that they are always constantly watching this and give us the best information they can as soon as they can. So we really try to get ahead of this so that it gives us the opportunity to ramp up and take care of the issue well beforehand, not be reactionary. On every incident, and this incident in particular, we have what's called an IMET, an incident meteorologist. So he's a full meteorologist that is his job full time, and he specializes in fire weather type of scenarios. So we have that person and also a fire behavior analyst assigned to the team, and so their job and their sole job is to look at these things and project and they're an excellent asset to us as the operations section, and we work with them very closely so that we can best prepare and then deploy our resources accordingly.
Do you have an early damage estimate for the structures that are destroyed?
So the question was related to the early estimate for damaged and destroyed structures. We can confirm that there are 115 structures that have been destroyed. Again, we have multiple teams out there, our damage inspection teams, that go out and methodically catalog all of the kind of associated characteristics of that property that was destroyed. We expect that number to go up. There's areas that they just simply can't get into right now because power lines are down, trees are down, fire is still active in that area. But they go out on shift every day, and that number will go up.
Sonoma County said that their preliminary, they had a dollar amount, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah. So we wouldn't release a dollar amount. That would be at a county level, through an assessor's office at the county level. We give the information to the county that we collect for their record keeping and release.
Can you say anything about whether you've done assessments in the entire unit, or is that coming from specific areas?
Yeah, so no, this is in a few specific areas. It's by no means complete for the whole fire. That information will be forthcoming. As you can imagine, with 67,000 acres, it is a methodical process to get through all of the properties that are in there. I think you'll see the numbers go up until they hit that plateau where they've gotten through most of the kind of inhabited areas. But it just takes time, and it especially takes time when you're working in timber and there's trees across the road and there's firefighters working. And unfortunately, there are still a lot of people up there that really are hindering the operation.
You mentioned that you're going to have crews coming in from out of state. Which states are they coming from, and how many people?
Yeah, so we know there's firefighting crews coming from all over the western U.S. I think we have crews here already from Arizona, and that will be, they get assigned when they come into the state based on the threat that's out there. I know the question came up about lightning, and I think it's really important to note that the command center here in the San Lorenzo Valley in Felton, they use a lightning detection map when lightning storms come through. And in the last week, the Alert Wildfire Camera System, which is a fire verification system, there's been 3 new installations of cameras within the unit here in San Mateo, Santa Cruz. And those are the cameras that our command center uses to look at the locations where there's been confirmed strikes. So that's a verification system. It's gotten a lot more robust even in the last week. And we hope we don't have to use it in the next 48 hours, but there's a high likelihood that we will. All right, everyone up here.
What can evacuees who have to leave animals behind you to get their animals rescued?
Yeah, so what I would do is coordinate with the local nonprofit agencies that they're affiliated with. There's an emergency operations center in Santa Cruz County that is working on all of the support functions related to the needs of the population that might be out. All right, everyone up here is available for questions after this press conference. One thing I just do want to note is tomorrow morning's press conference at 6 a.m. will be outside near the community room behind me, and we'll get some information out about that. This concludes the press conference. Thanks for joining us.